The annual Rossi reunion was held at Greg and Connie Rossi Berkey's home. A presentation was made to inform all family members of their heritage. This is that presentation. Every family has a story to tell of how their families arrived here in the United States. This is the story of the Rossi family's journey to the United States. Our heritage begins with the great-grandparents around 1870. 1870, the great-grandparents of the Rossi family was Frank and Constance DeSantis Rossi. They had 5 children: Pasquale, Vincenzo, Giuseppe, Antoinette, and Anna. Of all the children, they all will come to the United States with the exception of Anna. We do not know what happened to Anna. The second set of great-grandparents are Joseph and Cometa Cusco Mariano. Their children are Nicola, Rosalina, and Mary. Initially, we weren't sure if the other child's name was Mary, but we figured it out because in the Rossi family, one of the children were named Mary, and in the Mariano family, one of the children were named Mary. And it was custom for family to name children after family members. And it will be this family that will marry into the Rossi family. All the initial marriages will take place in Italy itself. The oldest son, Pasquale, he will marry Mary Mariano. She eventually will die, and so will the child during childbirth. Nicola Mariano will marry Antoinette Rossi, and Vincenzo Rossi will marry the sister of Nicola, Rosalina Mariano. The village is called Acquaviva Crolla de Cros. It is east of the Pennine Mountains and is very close to the Adriatic Sea. This is what Italy and the surrounding towns looked like in 1919. As you can see, Acquaviva Crolla de Cros is very close to the Adriatic Sea. It's relatively a small village. As you can see, it's very destitute. Cobblestone buildings are deteriorating, but this is a very poor region in Italy. This is the village church. Of course, Catholicism is the main religion in Italy. It is no different in their little village in Acquaviva. And you can see the church is well maintained. There were roughly 2,000 people that lived in this village, and large quantities of them will move to the United States, will immigrate to the United States. It's a very poor region, of course, and farming was the main industry. The main crops that were harvested here were figs and wheat. The first of the Rossi children to leave Italy will be Pasquale. He's going to leave in 1905. He decides that he's going to try to find a better place to live and also earn a better living by going to the United States. However, when he leaves in 1905, he takes with him his younger brother. So the two brothers leave together to go to the United States. It is known that Pasquale will settle in Buffalo, New York, and raise a family, and we do not know what happened to Giuseppe. It has been thought that he decided not to reside in the United States, and he went to South America. What country he went to in South America is unknown. The next of the family members to get married will be Antoinette Rossi. She's going to marry Nicola Mariano. They will be the next group to leave for the United States of the Rossi Mariano family. A little side note, Nicola, for a short period of time, went to Croatia to work as a police officer. Something occurred there, and he had to leave Croatia and returned to Italy, and that's when he decided to take his bride and move to the United States. The next brother to marry will be Vincenzo, and he will marry Rosalina Mariano. Of course, her brother is Nicola Mariano. In 1911, Vincenzo decides to join his brother in the United States. Of course, he's going to be the last of the brothers to leave Italy. He's had a sister leave and two brothers leave, so he decides to join him. At the time he decides to leave, he is 23 years of age. This is Vincenzo's manifest that when he came to the United States, and on it states where he came from, Aquavina, and he arrived here on April 10th, 1911, and he was 23 years of age. He traveled on the ship Louisiana, and his port of departure was Naples. When Vincenzo makes a decision to leave Italy, he will leave behind his 20-year-old bride, Rosa. At that same time, when he's getting ready to leave, she's expecting their first child, which they will name Pasquale after Vincenzo's brother. Pasquale would be born in 1911, December 7th of that year. In 1976, Pasquale Rossi needed to get his birth certificate from the village of Aquaville. And we don't know why he needed this here certificate, but this validates of his birth in Italy. Being alone, Rosa now must earn some type of a living, so she worked in the fields picking figs and cutting wheat. She did this for a number of years, and eventually young Pasquale, when he was old enough to help his mother, he would go out and help her. He always said that his mother was paid a bag of flour for her labors. Where young Rosa resided while Vincenzo was gone is unknown. We think, in all probability, she stayed with her parents. In addition to the lack of money to send for his young wife, there also was a war going on from 1914 to 1919. This, of course, was World War I. It was unsafe to travel the Atlantic Ocean at this time. So for all practical purposes, Rosa was trapped there in Italy without any money to travel to the United States, and also the oceans were not safe to travel. In 1919, Vincenzo now has saved enough money that he's going to send for his wife, Rosa. At this time, young Pasquale has turned 9 years of age. Now you got to remember that she is illiterate, and she's going to be making this journey by herself with her young son. It's estimated that Rosa and her son Pasquale will leave around January 27th, 1919. And this journey that they're going to take to the United States, there probably were about 4 or 5 other women with her. We also know that she had in her possession about $50, which was a relatively large sum of money at that particular point in time. But she still got to buy her tickets. The party that she's with, in other words, it's going to be Rosa and 4 to 5 other women, has what is called a patron. Patron is responsible for making sure that this group of women get to their destination properly in the United States. The patron in this instance was a 19-year-old young boy. His name was Mr. Chickenese. It will be Mr. Louis Chickenese's responsibility of taking these 4 to 5 women from Aquavilla to Croce as a patron all the way to Naples. That distance is going to be about 107 miles that he has to be responsible just to get them to Naples. This is a road through the Adriatic Mountains, and of course it was difficult at the time. The roads weren't as good as what they are now to travel such a route. In his later years, young Pasquale, now as a mature adult, was asked, what was your lasting memory of Italy when you were leaving that early morning? He said he never forgot the sunrise that was coming up over the Pennine Mountains, and he would always remember that sunrise all into his adult life. And mornings when he would wake up as a young man here in the United States, he would still see that sunrise in his mind. Traveling through the mountains, which was a 107-mile trip from their village of Aquaviva to Naples, they either went by an animal cart or a pickup truck. Now this became a bone of contention because as Pasquale described it the first time, he gave the illusion that it was a cart. In reality, it had to be, he was sitting on the back of a truck as he watched the sun come up over the mountains. And we know that they left very early in the morning and they were in the midst of the mountains when he first saw the sun. This is the port of Naples in 1919. Can you imagine what it was like for young Rosa and her son to see all these large ships tied up in the harbor, and the hustle and bustle of all the people buying tickets and wanting to get aboard ship? And where they stayed that first night, it is unknown. But now she had to buy her ticket to take this trip to the United States. There were two ways that you could buy a ticket for a trip. One was you could get a ticket from a person walking around the port, or right to the ship station's office. In this instance, we don't really know how she purchased her ticket, but we know that a ticket cost $30, and the trip would take 4,285 miles. And it's kind of ironic that the trip that was going to be taken on the USS America. This is their manifest. It shows both of them, Rosa and also Pasquale, and they arrived here in the United States on the 31st of January in 1920. She was 27 at the time, and he just was going to turn 10 years of age. This was not easy traveling on these ships because their ticket provided them a residency on the ship at the very bottom, and at the other two levels of the ship there were about a total of 3,000 passengers. They slept in bunks and it was called steerage. They slept in bunks and they just had long tables to eat on. It was Pasquale's responsibility to find tables for them to eat on because there weren't enough room for everybody. It will be a 14-day trip to travel across the Atlantic Ocean in the winter months. The crossing is going to be very rough. The seas were extremely rough, and at one point in time, Rosa could not find her son Pasquale, and she thought he fell overboard. And she came running around hysterical, asking people if he ever saw her son, and eventually he did. That's all Pasquale was doing, was just being a young lad, just trying to explore different places on the ship. He said his mother really gave him a good scolding. He said also another time that what happened while they were on their trip, another ocean liner pulled up next to him, was selling fruit. And he thought that was kind of odd. In the middle of an ocean, two ocean liners meet side by side, and one of the ocean liners was trying to sell food, like fruit and vegetables, to the people on the USS America. Of course, he said his mother could not afford something like that. Once the ship arrives at Ellis Island, there's going to be a process that they all got to go through. First, the doctors will come aboard, make sure there's not anyone that's severely ill, and then they will be brought to the dock at Ellis Island to be processed. This is Ellis Island. This is where they will disembark. If anybody ever has the opportunity to go see Ellis Island, you need to do so to learn more about our heritage. Once they're on Ellis Island, they will enter what is called the Great Hall. And here they're going to be processed to legally be allowed to enter the United States. And in this great hall, there is just enormous amounts of people. There's a lot of noise. There's a lot of confusion. You can imagine what it would be like if you were an illiterate immigrant such as Rosa and Pasquale, seeing all this taking place around you, and you just followed the line until it was your turn to be processed. The process included especially an eye disease. There was an eye disease that was rampant in Italy at this particular point in time, where it was a transmissible disease where people would go blind. And then the other thing they checked for was such things as tuberculosis and measles. And also they want to know what the person's political leanings were. If you were an anarchist, they were not going to allow you into this country. If you fell in a category that they either thought you were an anarchist, or you had an eye disease or another disease that couldn't be cured there right away, you were sent out what was called the Stairway of Tears. This stairway would take you back to the dock and the ship from whence you came. Young Pasquale remembers seeing people going up these stairs, and he asked his mother where are those people going, and she had to explain to him that they weren't allowed in the United States. When you're being processed, you were given a green tag. This is an example of what the green tag looked like. And this was pinned to their clothing, so it would help as they're moving to the directions of wherever they wanted to go, so people could read where they were going and help them find the right transportation. But everyone had a green tag like this pinned to their clothing. Trying to figure out how they arrived to Michigan, it took some research, and the nearest we can figure out is that Rosa was put on a train from New York on the New York Central, and would take her to Detroit. And of course the ID tags, the green tag that they carried, helped people get them in a right train. Young Pasquale told the story about how the person in charge of the train, in other words, a conductor, would jingle the keys whenever he tried to sleep during the night. So it was an overnight train trip that took him to Detroit. Once they arrived in Detroit, they had to figure out how to get to Monroe. Now she had no idea where Monroe was. In fact, she didn't even have an idea where Michigan was when she arrived there. But she was told to get on this trolley. Now there was an electric trolley that went from Detroit to Monroe. So she boarded that trolley, and it would cost a quarter ticket to buy a ticket to get on that trolley to go to Monroe. It took them directly to Monroe, which was roughly about a 25 to 30 minute ride. And it was in the evening, it was starting to get dark, and they dropped them off right on the corner of Elm Street and Monroe Street. And what you see in the background is St. Mary's Church. That's exactly where they were dropped off. Once they left that trolley, the trolley started on its way, and there they were, two young immigrants, cold. Now it's February, standing in the middle of Monroe Street and Elm Street, and there's nobody there to greet them. And she had to make a decision what to do. So Pasquale says that her mom said there's lights that way, and she was pointing north on Monroe Street, which would take them towards St. Joseph's Cemetery. There was nobody there to greet them. It had to be an extremely lonely feeling as they started that long walk down Monroe Street. They had no idea, or I should say Rosa had no idea where they were going, but she was going to walk towards those lights. Rosa and young Pasquale are walking down Monroe Street heading towards St. Joseph's Cemetery. A woman peers out her window and notices that they're walking in this cold February morning with not heavy clothing. So she opens her door and goes down the stairs and coaxes Rosa and her young son into her house, warm home. Here she decides she's going to call a cab because she did read their tag about their home that they were going to was 746 Winchester. When the cab arrives, Rosa thinks it's the police because the cab driver has on his head, a cab driver's hat at that point in time, written on the side of the cab is the name of the cab company. Now, to Rosa, who is illiterate, to her, they thought that was a police officer. and she became hysterical, wasn't going to go, and it took him a while to calm everybody down, and she did get into the cab. And here it is, there's going to be this 27-year-old young lady with her son, trusting somebody's going to take her to the right place. Nicola is going to get out of the cab on that cold February morning and going to walk up those long stairs, and that's the house on the right, 746 Winchester, and is the home of Nicola Mariano and her sister-in-law Antoinette Rossi. The house is 746 Winchester, as I mentioned, and the house is right next to another home called 742 Winchester. Nicola is going to see a sister for the first time in 10 years. Rosa walks up to the stairs, and there had to be apprehension in her as she walks up to the stairs, hoping it's the right house, and knocks on the door, and the door is open, and her brother greets her. There's smiles. Vincenzo comes, he's smiling, he grabs her, there's crying, there's all kinds of activity taking place of various people greeting them. And young Pasquale hides behind his mother because he has no idea who these people are. And so he's really frightened. So it was good. It was a good reunion for the family. Vincenzo and Rosa and Pasquale stays for just a short period of time at 746 Winchester. During this time, young Vincenzo decides he wants to buy the house next to Nicola, and that house address is 742 Winchester. This is the actual house present day. How much she paid for this house, we do not know, but we have an idea that the homes in that time period went for about $5,000. Again, the two photos which will show you how close the homes were, and the one on 746 and the one on 742. From 1919 to 1927, Rosa will have two more daughters. She will name one Mary Rose, which is the child on the left, and the other one Antoinette. Mary Rose is named after her sister who passed away in Italy, and Rose is named after herself, so she combined those two names. Antoinette, the one that she's holding, is named after her sister-in-law, which would be Vincenzo's sister, Antoinette Rossi. Rosa believed in her education. She wanted her son to become a doctor, and the closest school that he would attend would be St. Mary's School. So young Pasquale walked from 742 Winchester all the way to St. Mary's School, which is located on Monroe Street. Later on, will change schools. It will be the IHM nuns that will open up a school in what was called the Old Eagle Movie Theater, which is located at Humphrey Street in Winchester. And young Pasquale will leave St. Mary's parochial school and go to that school. One of the reasons why he left was because he didn't speak good English, and of course it wasn't an Italian parish, and he felt very out of place there. But he only went to school there temporarily, and he will only go to the Eagle Theater School temporarily too. That's going to change. Change begins with the purchasing of a cigar building for the Italian community. It will become both the church and a school. Of course, the church is going to be named St. Joseph's. The old cigar factory will now become a church and a school for the Italians living in the East End. This is where young Pasquale will go to school. While he's going to school there's going to be a young lady who will run across. Her name is Frances Savaggio. Young Pasquale is going to have major tragedies that's going to occur in his lifetime. The first tragedy we'll see will be about his mother and his sister. In the year 1927, Rosa delivers her third daughter, Natalina. All of her children, of course, were born at home. This particular birth goes awry. An infection sets in, and Rosa has to be rushed to the Toledo Hospital, where she will pass away on December the 28th, 1927. At that point in time, this woman was 37 years of age. With this infection, she's also going to have this infection spread to her young baby. It is unknown how she got to the Toledo Hospital. However, she got there. That's where she will pass away, and this is her death certificate. Now the young baby, Natalina, has the infection, and they could not stop that spread of the infection in this young baby, and she will die on December the 31st. It is quite a travesty for young Pasquale at this point in time in his life. This is the death certificate for Natalina, and of course they list on it when she was buried, but there's discrepancies about this burial. There's a mystery to the death of Rosa and Natalina. Young Pasquale said that he saw both Natalina and his mother in the same coffin, and they were buried together in that coffin. Upon investigation, St. Joseph Cemetery said they have no legal paper saying that such a thing took place, but yet we cannot find a gravestone for young Natalina. As you can see on Rosa's gravestone, there's nothing or any mention at all of Natalina. Investigation, we went to the St. Joseph Cemetery to check their records, and they have no records that a daughter, Natalina, was buried with her mother, Rosa. And this is still a mystery, but young Pasquale says that he actually saw his mother and his sister in the same coffin, and they were buried together at St. Joseph Cemetery at this gravesite. Vincenzo had told Pasquale that his two sisters, Mary Rose and Antoinette, that they would have to be placed in an orphanage. He said that he could not take care of them, and he was going to place them in St. Mary's orphanage. The orphanage that you see in this photo is located on the River Raisin, and of course it's burned down now, but that is the Monroe Street Bridge. When they're placed in this orphanage, all the orphans are classified as inmates. Kind of ironic to call an orphan child an inmate, but that's what the nuns call them. Of course, his two sisters were devastated that they're being put in an orphanage, but Pasquale assured him that at some point in time he would come for them and bring them home, and he would keep that promise. This is a photo of Pasquale and his dad visiting his sister. Pasquale would always go and visit his sisters on weekends because he always wanted to keep that hope alive that he would bring them home at some point in time. And at this point in time, he was 16 years old. The next problem that crops up for young Pasquale is that his dad said he had to drop out of school because he had to help support and take care of his sisters. At that point in time, he was in the 7th grade. There was so much going on in his life in a relatively short period of time. It had to be depressing for him. After going to night school over a number of years, in 1936, Pasquale becomes a citizen of the United States. This was one of his most cherished moments. I always asked him if he wanted to go back and see Italy, and he said he never wanted to go back. The United States is his country now, and he was a proud American, and he loved this country. As he grew older, he established a close friendship with Frank Mariano in the center and Pasquale Miracle on the right. They're in the back of his house on 742 Winchester, and these guys were very close friends. In 1936, Pasquale's life changes. His bachelor days are about to be over. He will meet Frances Savaggio, and wedding bells are going to be in 1937. Stay tuned because the story will continue and there's other stories to be told about the Rossi family. To all the descendants of Pasquale Rossi, we encourage you to embrace your heritage.